How many of you have tried the son papri that is made by the brahmacharis here at Radha Gopinath Temple? Please raise your hands. It appears that we are not making enough. Anyways, this is a very famous sweetmeat that is coming from Govardhan. And people from all over the world go to this one shop at Govardhan to eat this sweet. Its flavor and its texture is quite unparalleled. And so many people have tried to make it, but they failed. I know so many people from so many temples all over the world who want to make this for their deities, and it comes out like chalk. Like eating some of that yellow chalk. Or it may taste a little good, but there's nothing. The texture, the flavor, how do they do it? It's impossible. We even had some of our best cooks here at Radha Gopinath Temple trying to make it. And they'd very happily come and say, this is what we made, this is what we made. We spent so long studying and trying to do it. And I would... They're my worshipable mothers. I don't want to hurt their feelings. It's very good, but keep trying. Keep trying. But really incredible, because all these ladies who are fantastic connoisseur cooks for their whole lives, making all sorts of Indian preparations and Maharashtrian preparations and Bengali preparations and Punjabi preparations and Gujarati preparations and South Indian preparations. Then they learn all these Chinese and Italian stuff. Anyone who comes to their home, such incredible prasad. These are like champion cooks that we have in our congregation among the ladies. But when it came to son papri, no way. So brahmacharis, they're not famous for being great cooks or anything, but they're surrendered sometimes. So we sent some brahmachari to Govardhan to learn how to make son papri from the people who are the only people on the planet who make it like this. And it's a secret recipe. And of course, we went on yatras and we bought sweets for 5,000 people a day from the shop, so they were favorable toward us. But if you asked the devotees who went there, Radha-Duti Prabhu and Damodar Jai Sachinandan Radha-Duti Prabhu, talk to them. When they went, they were not taught anything. They had to clean the floors. They had to scrub the pots. They had to cut stuff. They didn't do any cooking at the beginning. They were just doing menial service. And, I don't know what they were thinking, but the thought could have been, I came here to learn how to make this, and they just have me working, and they're not paying. From a material perspective, it seems that they were like, we're just doing all kinds of hard labor, washing big pots, and they burn their pots a lot, and it's washing and arranging and cleaning, and we're not getting paid anything for it. Yes? But actually that's the traditional method. That before your heart is really fertile to actually digest the seed of knowledge, you have to be in the right state of mind. An enthusiasm to serve, an eagerness to learn, to be humble and submissive. So they did it. They washed pots, they cleaned. They helped to stir. They didn't know what they were stirring, but they were stirring over fires. They were getting their hands burnt because you have to actually handle this when it's burning hot with your fingers. They were getting burnt. They were working hard, long hours. And in the end, by the time they actually were given the recipes, they could do it. And when they came back and made it, there were devotees who lived in Vrindavan for many years and who used to go to Giriraj Govardhan just to get those sown paparis. When they took it from our Radha Gopinath's Mahaprasad, they said, this is at least as good as what is at Govardhan. But it was the traditional method. They were like an apprentice to a teacher. And that type of learning, that type of knowledge is almost lost in the world today. But it's something very sacred. It was the tradition throughout the world at one time. So all of these students, they came before Nimai and they were so submissive and they were so eager to serve him in every way that he reciprocated and gave them 20 years worth of education in 2 months and the power to remember everything. While he was away, his beloved wife Lakshmi Devi, she was feeling such intense separation from her Lord. Please understand that Lakshmi Devi is the goddess of fortune, the eternal consort of Krishna. She was feeling so much separation. She could hardly eat anything. It is described that she would not allow Sachimata to understand the pain of her heart. There was an uncontrollable fire of feelings of love and separation from Lord Chaitanya. She couldn't sleep at night. All night she would just cry, remembering the Lord within her heart, cry and cry and cry. That was the nature of her love. A moment in separation from him was like 12 years or more. What to speak of months of separation. But she concealed the pain of her heart from Sachi because she didn't want to cause her any pain. She didn't say a single word to anyone. She was in the highest, deepest state of samadhi, spiritual absorption in the Supreme. And when it came to its ultimate culmination, she went to the bank of the Ganga, Mother Ganges, and she sat, and in the core of her heart, her body, mind, words, life, her entire consciousness, her every thought was deeply immersed in the ocean of remembrance of Lord Gauranga. And in that state, she totally gave herself to him. And then did something extraordinary. By her own transcendental powers, her original spiritual body left this world to return to the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, to be reunited with her beloved Lord eternally. And in the meanwhile, by her own will, she left a duplicate spiritual body of herself on the bank of the Ganga. When Sachimata heard that her daughter-in-law had passed away, we had explained how happy she was at every moment. And now, to the degree she was happy, there was that sorrow. Who's going to take care of my son? Who's going to be with him? She was the goddess of Sachi's life, her heart. Sachi couldn't say a word to anyone. Meanwhile, it was time for Nimai to return back to Navadvip. So he announced his departure. And so many students and scholars and everybody were coming to the bank of the Padma River to say goodbye to him and give him gifts. And he was there, reciprocating with their affection. At that time, one great Brahmin scholar named Tapan Mishra, who we are reading about in today's verse, he had spent his whole life seeking satya and sadhana. What is the goal of life and how to reach it? Interestingly, he chanted the name of Krishna. And he was a profound scholar of the Vedic scriptures. But without understanding the process of bhakti, under a teacher of bhakti, even if you chant the names of God and even if you read all the scriptures, you can't really understand what is the goal of life and how to achieve it. He was so intensely determined to find this out. He had a nice family, he had nice everything. But without understanding the goal of life and how to achieve it, it was all like an empty shell. He studied deeper, deeper, more and more. He chanted more and more. He went to so many people, scholars, holy men, to ask from them. But he was never satisfied. He was immersed in prayer. Please, God, give me direction. And late one night, he had a dream. In that dream, a deva, a demigod, appeared to him and told him, because of your sincerity to understand the sadhya and the sadhana, the goal of life and the path to achieve it, I will reveal to you the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. The God of all creation has descended into this world as Nimai Pandit. And he's now on the banks of the Padma River in Bangladesh teaching. Not far from here. Go to him. Go to him and he will explain you what is the ultimate goal of life and the path to achieve it. But do not tell anyone that I told you who he is. If you do, you will suffer birth after birth after birth. He got up from his sleep. He was crying. There was hope. There was great hope. And he came running to the place where Lord Chaitanya was just about to leave. And there was hundreds and hundreds of people around him, joking with him and giving him very nice tokens of appreciation and bowing to him and talking to him and getting some last instructions from him. And Tapan Mishra comes in and falls at the Lord's feet. And Tapan Mishra told him, my whole life I have been searching, but I have not found what I'm looking for. Yes, I have read so many scriptures and so many philosophy books and so many teachings of other teachers. And I've been chanting God's names. But I haven't found the solution. please tell me, what is the true goal of life and how can I gain it? Lord Chaitanya smiled at him. He said, you are so fortunate that you have this eagerness. Because you're chanting God's names, and because you're studying these scriptures with an eagerness to learn, now by the mercy of the Lord you've come to me. This is your good fortune. Enthusiasm, eagerness, is a necessary ingredient for spiritual progress. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, unless you have enthusiasm from a spiritual perspective, you're practically dead. Srinvatam Sukatha Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana. This beautiful verse tells, when we are eager to hear about Krishna, then Krishna within our heart is so pleased, he reveals the truth to us. We should be eager in whatever we're doing. Nothing is just ritualistic. Nothing should simply be a formality. What does enthusiasm mean? Enthusiasm means it's coming from the heart. It's with a will. When we chant the names of the Lord, it should be with enthusiasm. When we're coming to hear the class or study the scriptures, it should be with enthusiasm, with eagerness to learn, eagerness to access, eagerness to connect. And when we serve, whether we're serving the Lord on the altar, or whether we're serving the devotees, or whether we're serving the order of the Guru, or whether we're serving the common people of the world, it should be with eagerness. It should be with purpose, with meaning. If we don't have a purpose or meaning to what we're doing, we cannot be eager. And that's why it's so important. Nasta prayesya bhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya. To hear. When we hear from the right sources, it nourishes the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. And with that purpose, we can have enthusiasm. I was at a lecture with Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada was emphasizing the importance of enthusiasm. He said, if you're not enthusiastic, then you're like a dead person, spiritually. And somebody asked, what if I don't feel enthusiastic? And Srila Prabhupada said, if for the right purpose you act enthusiastic, then Krishna will see your sincerity and give you the enthusiasm. Nothing is cheap. So much is based on our motivation, our intention, but our intention has to be activated with enthusiasm. The feelings may be there, or they may come later. Our motive is more important than our feeling. Because the mind changes our feelings from moment to moment sometimes. Sometimes I really feel like doing something good for my brother. And other times I don't feel like it at all. But if we have the right motive, we will do it anyway. I may not feel like chanting, or I may feel like chanting. It doesn't really make that much difference. I do it with enthusiasm because it pleases Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya was congratulating his good fortune for having this enthusiasm. Vyabhashayatmaka buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyabhashayanam. Krishna tells in Gita, those who are on this path are resolute. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. Doesn't mean you're sectarian. It means you really are focused on the essence, saragrahi. Tapan Mishra, he had such incredible scholarship. Why was he dissatisfied? Because he wasn't satisfied with all the philosophical explanations. He wasn't satisfied with all the ritualistic ways of attaining it. He wanted the essence. He was seeking the essence, and he wouldn't settle for anything less than the essence. In religion today, you see all too often that a process that's supposed to create love creates hate. A process that's supposed to empower you to see the divinity in every living being causes you to persecute and discriminate. A process that's supposed to unite divides. A process that's supposed to free you from envy gives absolute justification with philosophical, scriptural reason to be envious. Saragrahi. Because very few people want to seek the essence. Srila Prabhupada explained any religion that teaches people practically how to love God and transform people's consciousness to actually love God. And love of God means no envy, no hatred. If you love God, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, it manifests as compassion to all beings. That is true religion. Essence. You are seeking the essence. You're not satisfied with anything less. That is your good fortune. And now I will teach you what is the goal of life and how to achieve it. The goal of life is unmotivated, uninterrupted, loving service to the Supreme Lord. Krishna is all attractive, the enchanter of every heart. And the way to attain that love for Krishna in this age is chanting the Lord's holy names. In every age, the Lord descends to teach the process that is most powerful and authorized at that time. The Lord appeared in a white complexion to teach meditation in Satya Yuga, in a red complexion to teach yajna in the Treta Yuga. He came as Krishna. He came with a dark bluish complexion to teach the worship of him in the Dwapara Yuga. And in the age of Kali, the recommended process is the chanting of the names of God. The Lord quoted from Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskaram dharma samstapanardaya sambhavami yuge yuge. The Lord descends again and again and again for this purpose. And then he quoted a beautiful verse. Harinama, Harinama, Harinameva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. In this age of Kali, there is no other way for achieving that highest limits of ecstatic love of God than the chanting of the names, chanting of the names, the chanting of the names of Lord Hari. And Lord Chaitanya said, I am now going to give you a mantra. Please understand, by chanting the names of the Lord in this spirit, all the other processes are fulfilled and included. Now hear carefully as I give you a 16-word, 32-syllable mantra, which is the Maha Mantra, the greatest of all mantras. And for the first time in our Gaudiya Vaishnava literatures, historically, Lord Chaitanya is directly revealing within the scripture the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra at this scene on the bank of the Padma River in Bangladesh to Tapan Mishra. The Lord said, this mantra you should chant. Repeat after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, said, there are no hard and fast rules for chanting. Whether you're eating, sleeping, walking, wherever you may be doing your work, just repeat this beautiful Maha Mantra. And the Lord explained, simply chant this mantra without duplicity. That was his instruction. This is very powerful. There's no hard and fast rules for chanting the Lord's name, but the Lord explained, he gave this one principle which is so powerful but so difficult. If we want to access the power of God's names, we must live without duplicity. That doesn't mean that when you sit down to chant you don't have duplicity. It means your life has to be without duplicity. Because what your life is what you come to the altar of the holy name with when you do come to chant. Simple living, high thinking. Not to have a separate agenda. Not to have hidden motives. Not to have selfish desires cloaked by a holy appearance. To be without duplicity means Trinadapi Sunichena, Tador Ivasahishnana, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Just after, a little later, when Lord Chaitanya is in Navadvip, after establishing the Kirtan movement, he says, take this verse, to be humble like a blade of grass, tolerant like a tree, eager to offer all respect to others and not expect respect for oneself. Take this verse that empowers you to chant the name of the Lord constantly. Put it on the string of the holy name and wear it always. If you're humble, you're not duplicitous. Duplicity is a symptom of false ego, of false pride. The Lord didn't just tell him chant Hare Krishna. He told him chant without duplicity. And you will attain the ultimate goal. Tapan Mishra was so happy. He fell at the Lord's feet and said, I want to tell you a secret. I can't say it in front of all these other people, because we heard what would happen if he did. He said, this magnificent personality appeared in me, my dream, and revealed to me that you are the supreme Lord of all lords. And Lord Chaitanya said, do not tell anyone what you have heard. And then Tapanisha said, I would like to come back to Navadvip and Mayapur with you. Because actually, many students were going to come with Lord Chaitanya back to Navadvip. Tapanisha said, I want to come with you. Please allow me to come with you. Lord Chaitanya was going to go back, and not long after that, he was going to establish the Sankirtan movement in Navadvip. Lord Chaitanya told Tapan Mishra, I want you to go to Varanasi and reside there. Now this is a big surrender. He's willing to leave, take his family and home and go to Navadvip. And Lord Chaitanya says, you're willing to go? Go to Varanasi. There wasn't a single devotee in Varanasi. It was the high seat of the whole planet for Mayavad philosophy, where Vaishnavas, devotees, were attacked and ridiculed. And he would be the only one there, practically. But Lord Chaitanya knows past, present, and future. He was living like a householder. He hadn't begun the Sankirtan movement yet. But he knew in the future he would take sannyas. And he knew in the future he would go to Varanasi. And while in Varanasi, the most extensive teachings he had ever given anyone, he would give to Sanatana Goswami. Years later, on the banks of the river Ganga in Varanasi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to speak for 2 continuous months, all day, every day. From the most fundamental teachings to the most highest rasika revelations to Sanatana Goswami. To teach sadhya, the goal of life, and sadhana, the path to reach it. And because Tapan Mishra was so very, very eager to learn, Lord Chaitanya told him, by chanting this Maha Mantra without duplicity, the seed of love of God within your heart will sprout, it will blossom, and it will grow. And just keep chanting. And come to Varanasi, and I will come there, and I will instruct you. During that 2-month discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami, Tapan Mishra was sitting beside the Lord, hearing everything. How would you like to have been there for that? The essence of it is given in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. But that dialogue we could read in Chaitanya Charitamrita in a few hours. But Lord Chaitanya was speaking about 12 hours a day for 60 days. What a blessing. He was eager to hear, and he was going to hear more than anybody has ever heard. Krishna spoke the Gita in just a couple hours to Arjuna. And a teaching even beyond the Gita, Lord Chaitanya was going to speak for 2 months consecutively to Sanatana Goswami and Tapan Mishra. For the welfare of the whole world, for all time. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then took leave. Later on, Tapan Mishra did go to Varanasi. And there he had a son. His name was Raghunath Bhatta, who later became the great Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, one of the greatest spiritual acharya saints that ever lived. And Raghunath Bhatta had no interest in anything material. He wanted to just, when Lord Chaitanya came to Varanasi, Raghunath Bhatta was just a little boy, and he massaged Lord Chaitanya's feet and massaged his legs and did simple services for him, and Lord Chaitanya blessed him. And when Raghunath Bhatta grew older, he came to Jagannath Puri, where Lord Chaitanya was living as a sannyasi, and he would spend 9 months just doing service and being with all the devotees. Lord Chaitanya sent him home, and then he came back, spent 9 months, and Lord Chaitanya told him, you should go back to your home and serve your mother and father as long as they live. And after that, you could come back here. That was how much affection Lord Chaitanya had for Tapan Mishra. He knew that serving a great Vaishnav is the most precious thing that there is. So, back to our story, Lord Chaitanya returned to Navadvip. And everyone was so happy to greet him, but they didn't want to tell him about the departure of Lakshmi Devi. Because it was such a happy reception for him. Sachimata, she greeted him, and she somehow or other held back her sorrow and her tears and smiled, and I'm so happy you're home, my son. And all the relatives and friends and everyone else was gathered around, and they were joking and talking, and he was telling about what happened in Bangladesh, and they were all so blissful to have the Lord back, but no one dared to tell the news. Of course, the Lord knows everything. And Sachimata practically the whole time just stayed alone in her room crying. She couldn't bear that Lakshmi Devi had left. And Lord Chaitanya left everyone else at a certain point and came to Sachi Devi's room. And Sachi Devi could not even look at him, although she tried to make him happy. He said, "My mother, I'm home. And I had such a successful expedition to Bangladesh, and I brought so many gifts for you in the household. Why are you not happy? I see in your eyes, I see in your face such deep sorrow." And then one of the relatives told Lord Chaitanya that Lakshmi Devi has left us. And Chaitanya Bhagavat describes Lord Chaitanya put his head down and was engulfed in an ocean of separation from his beloved wife. The feelings of the love between the Lord and the devotees, there's nothing material about it. It's transcendental. It's on the level of the soul. And to pacify his mother, Lord Chaitanya explained that the relationships in this world of father, mother, brother, children, friends, they are all on the basis of this body. But the body's always changing. Dehinosmin yatha dehe komadam yovanam jara. The eternal soul passes from childhood to youth, to adolescence, to old age, and ultimately the body dies. But the soul is eternal. The soul is part of Krishna, the living force, the Atma. And by the grace of the Lord, we have beautiful relationships within this world, but by the nature of the world, which is also ultimately the grace of the Lord, everything has a beginning and end. Lakshmi Devi was totally immersed in thoughts of Krishna. So for sure she has attained the ultimate destination. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajachyante kalevaram. Krishna said, whatever one remembers at the time of death, that determines the destination of the soul. And whatever our consciousness is cultivated in life, that will determine that last thought at death. Antakali chamameva smaran maktva kalevaram. Krishna says, one who remembers me at the time of death will attain me without fail. But we can't just decide to remember Krishna at the time of death. Whatever is most prominent in life is what is going to appear to us at death. Lakshmi has attained perfection. But I'm still here with you, my mother. In this way, the Lord, in such an intimate and sweet way, showed such love and kindness to his beloved mother, Sachimata. And for Sachi Devi, Lord Chaitanya was the all in all, the everything. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by the persuasion of Sachi Devi, he married Vishnupriya a little later. And after some time, he decided to go to Gaya to perform the Shraddha for his father. There he met his Gurudev, Ishwarapuri, and took initiation. And it was at that point that the ecstatic love of Sri Radha manifested from his heart. And he returned to Navadvip to establish the Harinam Sankirtan movement. And we will discuss some things of that subject this afternoon. Actually, in a couple hours. For those of you who want to have breakfast prasad, or maybe we should call it lunch prasad, we will conclude our Gaur Purnima festival this afternoon with kirtan, katha, and wonderful feast. I thank you very, very much.